And now, for news about screws that you can use, here's Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Eric and Brian. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. Somehow, American progressive gurus have been gifted 2 more years to show us the fruits of modern monetary theory, also known as endless spending of non-existing money, not to mention the fruits of lawless executive branch governing by fiat. And somehow, the cryptocurrency celebrity class of the last few years is curiously silent and missing in action on the latest cryptic scams and evaporation of wealth. And somehow, we had a beautiful Indian summer in Ohio without fielding a baseball team of the same name. And somehow, I am still focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In this episode, Earnest CEO Kirk Zehnder joins us to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story on Fastenal, as well as newsmaker headlines from Brighton Best International, Optimus, FDH Aero, Endries International, Pivot Point, AFC Industries, Lakeshore Fastener Group, and more. On the back page report, we're going to talk about the science of happiness. We'll get to all of that and the latest FDI results right after this.
There's a reason Volt Industrial Plastics is an industry leader in plastic clip, clamp, and custom fastener manufacturing. With over 100 million parts in stock that can be shipped the same day, Volt has some of the fastest lead times in the industry. Volt can do color. We have the capability of molding over 120 different materials and can color match for specific applications. You need it? We can build it. At Volt, we have state-of-the-art technology to build prototypes to customer specs. And although some companies provide similar products, we offer customer service that's second to none, setting us apart from our competition. And now available, Volt's new light-duty cable clamps. With maximum diameters ranging from 3/16 to a ½ inch, these clamps are ideal for hard-to-reach spaces, electronics, and finish work. They prevent corrosion with metal tubing, and with plastic tubing, they won't bind or warp, preventing leaks while maintaining the flow of liquids. Volt Industrial Plastics, the finest, fastest plastic fasteners in the world. Visit us at voltplastics.com.
Since 1905, Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company have been supplying the world with high-quality fasteners. Our standard product lines include weld fasteners, braided weld screws, leg levelers, self-clinching hardware, clevis pins, rivet nuts, and various other fastener lines, allowing us to support virtually all types of industries. BuckeyeFasteners.com. Buckeye Fasteners, more than just weld.
Stainless Dan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. Star quality is more than products, just the way Wayne wanted it to be. It's simple. We're Star.
Mike McNulty.
The seasonally adjusted Fastener Distributor Index for October 2022 was 44.3, a sizable drop from the previous month's result of 47.6, and the third sub-50 result in the last 4 months, which comes on the heels of 25 straight months of above expansion threshold level of 50. The forward-looking indicator, also known as the FLI, also dropped to 42.4 versus 47.5 last month, suggesting further declines in the FDI could be coming our way. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network and Baird. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we talked to Earnest CEO Kirk Zehnder. Hi, Kirk. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
You bet, Mike. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. It's been almost 1 year since you were in the FDI seat. And a year ago, the numbers were quite different than they are now. What do you think of the latest FDI results?
I had nothing to do with them. I just want to point that out. So I wish it was a year ago. But, it's I look at this stuff closely, and then I back up, and then I get closer, and then I back up. And I always come to, how closely do I need to be looking at this? So take a look. Do I want to spend a whole bunch of time there, or do I want to just use it as, okay, that's a data point of right where we are? I love that I can look back. I wish that I could look forward, And since we don't have that, that's the tough point. So the lagging indicators are great to have. And we kind of know them as an industry because that's certainly where we've been. So if anything, look at this and go, okay, this matches up with where we're at. We're in the right spot.
All right. So we mentioned you were here a year ago, so I will put those numbers out there for anybody who doesn't remember. A year ago, the FDI was a little bit above 56 and the forward-looking indicator was around 64. So we're, settled down quite a bit since a year ago. So all the mad rush has come out.
So, yeah, and one of the things we talk about, because we're all looking for that accurate prediction, right, which is unavailable. So we have to make up some stories. What's the narrative? What do we see that happened? And we all know the beginning of the year was big, right? And people were placing large orders and taking large quantities because inventory was scarce and lead times were long. I want to believe, right, and this is my optimistic nature, I want to believe that we're at the tail end of some of those inventories and people are coming back and saying, okay, it's time to place orders. I wonder, how informed maybe, distributors are and really any buyer is out there, because lead time, it's not like everybody has, short lead times right now. So I wonder, right, have inventories bled off so much over the last 6 months that people are getting to that point where it's time to reorder and the expectation is everything's fine with the supply chain again. Things aren't where they were a year ago for sure, but they're not where they were 2 years ago. We're not back to this super stable supply chain where everything is working well. So again, prediction, right? I don't know what's coming, but I feel optimistic about business on the whole.
Well, that's good. That's a good take on it. We'll get into some of the other numbers as we report that the FDI continues to soften. The sales and supplier delivery numbers were weaker month to month at 27.9 and 46.4 respectively. And these offset improvements registered in the employment index, which rose to 53.6, and customer inventory levels, which jumped to 48.2, which was the highest level of 2022. So that might be kind of tying into what your thinking is there on the inventory side. So that sales numbers, that's a really low number, but as people know, who are regular lookers at the FDI, that it's comparing things month to month is the big thing, and we're seeing the declining. Everything is sales declining, deliveries declining, customer inventory is declining. So as you say, when they get smaller, they're going to start putting in some new orders.
That's the hope, right? That's the optimistic view.
Yeah. And then some other information we got from Baird, they said only 14% of the respondents saw sales above seasonal expectations, while 54% indicated they were worse. So that's the big reason why things dropped down, I guess. Pricing was pretty stable versus last month. And what are you guys seeing on pricing?
Same thing. Yeah, definitely seeing the same thing. In some areas, pricing has come down. Freight rates are coming down a little bit. I should say a lot, but they're still ahead of where they were, pre-pandemic. And so we're still pivoting and adjusting to that. But yeah, things have available lead times a little better, pricing coming down a little bit. Of course, we're all sitting on expensive inventory right now. So managing through that.
Yeah, you want to get it out of your building and into the customer's building.
Yes.
You mentioned prices coming down. There was some commentary that some of the commodity prices have come down for the people. In particular, stainless steel has stabilized quite a bit. Do you guys do much in stainless steel? We don't.
So I can't comment too much on that, except I'm glad I'm not doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It was a big problem a while ago. So, yeah. Let's see. Let's look at the 6-month outlook numbers. We were kind of unchanged from last month. We have 11% of the people expecting things to be better 6 months from now. 43 say it'll be the same, and a dismal 46 say it's going to be worse. I would think you'd probably put yourself maybe in that front end category.
I would. I definitely would. 11, 43, and 46. Those are the numbers. So almost a pretty even bell curve there, right? Some people sitting in the middle, some people looking ahead. So
yeah.
We feel good about where things are. We feel good about what we're doing. It's so easy to look and say, hey, things have slowed down, this last, just say summer, last 3 months.
From a high spot.
and get worried about that. We don't stop right there and go, hey, before I respond to that, where was I last year at the same time, that year over year look? And when we look at that and look at the year over year, wow, things are really good. We'd be pleased with this. So we've certainly been at that high mark for a while. And when it slows down a little bit, you wonder what's coming. Still ahead of where things were, and looking past the sales number, how are we doing connecting with customers? How are we doing with our service? How are we doing with all that? Those numbers are solid. Okay, we're in a good spot with regards to how we're performing and what we can deliver to the industry.
So definitely slowing down, but definitely in a good spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, let's move on to some of the commentary that people put into their responses. The forward-looking commentary mostly skewed bearish as recession fears continue to build, and general economic fears are beginning to translate into reduced customer orders and careful monitoring of cost. So one respondent said, quote, "Commercial customers are scaling back, anticipating slowing from their customers. Aerospace is still growing from the slowdown that COVID created. However, they seem to be watching their costs more closely." End quote. You guys do much in aerospace or not?
We don't.
Okay, so that's 2 in a row, right?
Yeah.
Asking the wrong questions. Sorry. Yeah, but I think that was a place that got hit really hard. So they're probably just behaving differently than the rest of the economy.
I think so.
Yeah. Another respondent said, quote, "Slight slowing from customers, feeling like everyone's a little bit hesitant or fearful of an economic slowdown," end quote. It might be more, just perception than reality.
I definitely ascribe to that. There is, ask recession, what is the recession? It's that lagging indicator looking back, right? So 2 quarters of declining growth. If that declining growth is 0.10% and the following quarter is 0.10%, technically we're in a recession. So look at that. Go, am I supposed to respond to that? Am I supposed to do anything different? Mean,
probably not.
Really can't. And I think a lot of that idea is, hey, we're due. It should be happening. Well, why should it happen? Happening? Because it's been so good and inflation is high and there's other things that are happening. It's like, yeah, and there's still a demand for parts and there's still a shortage of parts. So blue recycled garbage bags, right? Those 13-gallon black, not in stock for the last 6 weeks. Supply chain problem. And it was interesting. This came up recently. He said, what is the scar, the effect, the long-term scar of a supply chain interruption like we had? And we haven't seen something like this, so we don't know. So 2 years ago, supply chain interruption, right? It starts there. How long? And it was massive. How long does it take for us to recover from that? Is it 2 years? Is it 4 years? Is it 5 years? And I think that's something we just don't know. And still things popping up where availability is poor. Raw materials are poor. Things aren't in stock, still waiting for vehicles to be built with chips. So it's fascinating to me of this, what felt like a short impact in the supply chain. If we really think about it, how long is that impact feel, or how long are we going to feel it? We don't know. And I think that's a tough thing to predict.
Yeah, definitely. Something that nobody predicted 2+ years ago. So
no. And nobody thought you'd still be waiting for 3 months for a truck to be made for you.
Right. All right. Other comments. This one's on inventory destocking. It said, quote, "The expected drop in sales is finally here and probably will be for the next 4 to 6 months until inventory levels out." So that's kind of like the stabilizing of inventory, what we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. Then here's a comment related to supply chain. Quote, "Some lead times are getting better. Also finding transit times from overseas are getting better to the West Coast," end quote. And you touched on that. You said that transit rates are coming down quite a bit.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing that. We're not seeing though $4,200 for a container or 18 weeks. We're not there yet. We're not where it was 2.5 years ago. So
now you mentioned that lead times are still long, but are they better than they were?
They're better than they were. They're definitely better than they were, but they're not the 14 weeks that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, that seems to be a relief to a lot of people. I can remember, if you were looking for machinery, some people were quoting, like 18 months.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things like that. Let's see. The last comment is about automotive is down from earlier in the year, but apparently there's still enough pent-up demand, and most other industrial sectors are noticeably down, and regularly scheduled shipments are slowing. Any take on that?
So I went to buy a Toyota Tacoma this summer, and I was really excited to not pay $41,000 for a 3-year-old Tacoma. And when I was told I would be paying $43,000 for a new one, I got really happy. And then I was told it's a 6 to 8 month lead time depending on what I want. So it only took 3.5 months, but that's because I said, I don't care on the color. I just need these 2 features. So I became very flexible, and I only took 3 months. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's changed, but there's still, I understand there's still, farmers' fields filled with trucks waiting for chips. And the chip shortage is still very real and slowing down automotive deliveries.
So did you have to pay one of those inventory stocking fees?
There was no negotiations. I couldn't even get free floor mats out of the deal. So
no coffee while you wait.
No, there was nothing. Just sign up if you want to. Be patient.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I think there's still a big demand. Still unmet demand for sure.
Yeah, a little earlier than that, I had a nephew who bought a Toyota Corolla, entry-level car, his first car, and he had to pay a stocking fee. I think it was like $2,000 stocking on top of the sticker.
Yeah.
But you're saying the used prices, both prices came down when you were shopping.
Both. I don't know how much they came down, but
they came, or they stopped.
They stopped. Yeah.
They stabilized from where they were.
I believe so.
All right. Well, good. Anything else to add on the FDI before we give you a chance to tell the listeners what's going on in earnest?
No, short of, hey, the FDI is great information. Would love it. But it's one set of information, and we're certainly, you got to bring your own heart and your head and your data into it, I think, to make decisions based on it. But let's not all believe that things are going in the toilet, and they will go in the toilet if that's the case. So got to remain optimistic. No matter what, got to remain optimistic.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Look at the silver lining. Okay, so what's going on at Ernest? What's new and exciting?
So we were real pleased about, one of the silver lining, right, in things slowing down is a new ERP system, right? So put that in, turn that on September 19th. And we're glad things were a little slower because as with any system, no matter how much time and preparation you put into it or money you spend, it's just going to be really, really rough. So we're happy that we got through that. We call it our Apollo 21 project, and it's exciting. As difficult as it is, with just getting used to a new software, it's exciting to be part of, something that really can take us for another 10 years. So we leaned into this project a year and a half ago, and here we are on the other side of a go live. And like I said, the slowdown was helpful, somewhat helpful.
Yeah, helped you get through the learning curve.
For sure.
Good.
Yeah.
I also saw on LinkedIn, I was looking at your profile there, and it looks like you had a 20-year anniversary at the beginning of 2022.
I did, and the cake was amazing.
Okay.
So hard to believe it's been 20 years. I've obviously, as a Zehnder and grandfather started the business. I've been around the business my whole life, but active in it for the last 20 years. And amazing what we've done, amazing the changes that have happened. Many of them intentional, some of them reacting to the market. But looking around and seeing, the painful part of the 20-year is I realized I am one of the old people now. So
you're not the young guy telling
shaking
things up.
No. And it's important. You got to make sure you're using the right references. You can't really talk about Blockbuster too much anymore because a lot of our team are like, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't get your analogy. So
right, you gotta retool, come up with some different metaphors.
20 years feels like 100 and feels like 2 days too. So still love what I do. I'm thrilled to come to work every day. I love this opportunity.
Good. You got another 20 years in the tank?
Oh, for sure.
Or maybe more, maybe 40.
Sure. Yeah. Let's go for that.
Why not?
Yeah.
And there was a comment on there that you thought it was going to be maybe a short-term experience.
Yeah, Mike, I wasn't too bought into this whole my life in the fastener space. I just thought it would be a little stayover while I figured out what I really wanted to do.
Yeah, show them how to do it and then leave.
Yeah, and then leave, right?
But now
Instead,
you planted,
totally in.
built the foundation.
Yeah.
Or built upon the existing foundation.
Exactly. Every home, and it's 50 years old, 55 years old, there's some projects that need to get done, right? Time to renovate a room or redo some plumbing or upgrade the electrical. So we've been doing that for 20 years. And guess what? Time to do some more projects. So I guess they never end. So, yeah.
Right. Now, you mentioned the cake, so I was going to ask you how you celebrated. Was it was it a surprise or something that was planned out? And tell us a little bit about it.
It was an aspirational cake. There was no cake, so it was simply 20 years. So we celebrate everybody's work anniversary in the business at our Monday company-wide huddle, and so we get to share photographs or notes. Yeah, everybody gets their anniversary celebration.
Doesn't have to end in a 0 or a 5.
It does not. No.
Well, that's good. All right. Well, I was imagining a cake, so
I'm still waiting.
Well, that's a good milestone, and it's a good to hear that you've built upon the foundation that was put on by your grandfather and other people that come before you, and the people you're working with now, and then moving forward too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add?
Continue to be very happy to be part of this industry, and grateful for the people I've gotten to know in it and have helped. And I will say that psychological, emotional, spiritual help through these last couple years. So these have certainly been unusual ones, and glad to be in industry where I can count on people, friends, and peers, and even competitors to get through things together. So it's been great. Really happy to be with this team.
Very good. Definitely. So I want to thank you for coming on again and sharing your insights on everything in the FDI and everything at Ernest. And it's been a year, so hopefully we'll do it again in another year in your 21st year or maybe earlier.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
That was Ernest CEO Kirk Zehnder. The FDI number for October was 44.3 versus 47.6 in September. Visit FDIsurvey.com to participate in the process and get a detailed PDF copy of Baird's monthly analysis. Now for today's top story. For the first time ever, Fastenal reached $1 billion in year-to-date e-commerce revenue, surpassing the milestone last month. Fastenal's e-commerce platform was officially launched more than 20 years ago, but historically it represented a relatively small share of overall business. This began to change about 5 years ago with the strategy positioning e-commerce as a critical component of the company's high-tech, high-touch service model. While other retailers and distributors were racing to move their offline business online in pursuit of a lower cost to serve, Fastenal took a different approach, using its e-commerce platform to identify opportunities to migrate customer spend from a transactional online environment to a more strategic and effective environment anchored by the company's on-site and managed inventory programs. 5 years ago, the company's e-commerce sales were $245 million, representing just 5.5% of total sales. After hitting the $1 billion milestone in October, Fastenal's e-commerce sales now represent 17.4% of total 2022 sales and 19.9% of its October sales. Dan Florness, president and CEO of Fastenal, said, quote, "We don't often think of e-commerce as our primary go-to-market strategy, but it's becoming a vital part of our digital footprint, the technology we provide to streamline and illuminate the supply chain," end quote. Next up, today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In Mover and Shaker news, a recent post on LinkedIn announced that industry veteran and past Women in the Fastener Industry president, Rosa Hearn of Brighton International, has been named Director of Public Relations and Initiatives in addition to her current role as Product Manager. Ms. Hearn has been known as Rosa the Riveter while focusing her efforts on BBI's rivet business, and most recently she has moved into the company's welding line. Rosa is based out of Brighton Best's Los Angeles office, and she's the recipient of the 2022 Extraordinary Latina Connecting Community Award. Here is Rosa commenting for Fully Threaded Radio on this announcement.
Brighton Best International is always expanding, not only on their fasteners with metric and stainless steel, but with their brands of preferred, U.S. Anchor, and ironclad performance wear. And we wanted to make sure our customers felt that they had the assistance and the backing of not only our company, but of our brands. We also wanted to make sure we supported our Fastener Association and our communities. So, I'm very grateful to be able to be in this position to help. And thank you so much to everybody who congratulated me on my new position.
And in more personnel and representation news, Brighton Best International also appointed John Chong as the new Director of Repack of Operation and Frank DeVito as the new Director of Mill and Secondary Operations. Endries International named Michael Knight as President and Chief Executive Officer. FDH Aero hired Jason Lewis as VP of Quality. Optimus Solutions named Mike Tuffy and Daniel Harms as dual CEOs. Amanda Chance of FastSpec Incorporated won the Joanne Sherman e-learning scholarship offered by the Women in the Fastener Industry. IFE Americas appointed All American Systems as a sales rep, and Link Systems named Mike Byers to replace Kelly Evans as CEO. In expansion and contract news, Endries International acquired Alliance Nut and Bolt. Pivot Point Incorporated completed a 30,000 square foot manufacturing facilities expansion. AFC Industries acquired Champion Bolt. Nefco opened a new USA fulfillment center in Columbus, Ohio. Lakeshore Fastener Group acquired Hodges Fastener Corporation. Brighton Best International Montreal moved from a 90,000 square foot facility into a 154,000 square foot building. Colony Hardware acquired B&L Bolt Incorporated and Slip-On Locknut LLC. Boomax supplied stainless steel fasteners for German propeller maker Mecklenburger Metagus, also known as MMG, and Optimus Solutions opened a new center of excellence in Monterrey, Mexico. You can get details on all of these stories and more in Fastener Technology International Magazine and the Fastener News Report monthly newsletter, both available online at fastenertech.com. Now let's turn to the back page to talk about the science of happiness. Arthur Brooks is a Harvard professor, and he teaches a class on the science of happiness. He also writes about it, speaks about it, and studies it. In his work, he says that the secrets in the science of happiness can be found in practicing the daily habits of investing time and energy in 4 areas: faith, family, friends, and work. I found myself thinking of 3 of these happiness habits as I sat in the audience for the 2022 Hall of Fame and Young Fastener Professional Awards ceremony at the International Fastener Expo in Las Vegas last month. I thought of the importance of family, friends, and meaningful work when the Hall of Fame winners were announced. Rick Rudolph of Rick Rudolph Associates was introduced by his son Morgan. Joseph Voltrauer of Volt Industrial Plastics was introduced by his daughter Heidi. Andy Cohn of Duncan Bolt was introduced by his friend and coworker John Walkman. And Tim Malone of Spring Bolt and Nut Manufacturing was introduced by his friend and coworker Richard Sivley. The trend continued when the Young Fastener Professional of the Year award winner Brian Wheeler of Star Stainless was introduced by his father Bruce Wheeler. The introductions and acceptance speeches were short, sweet, and filled with happiness, as was the audience that was populated with family, friends, and coworkers of the winners. Finally, during an IFE panel session the next day called What's Working Best for Younger Generations, it was mentioned that young workers are looking for flexibility, good culture, respect, and meaning at work, which is actually universal for all workers. But the comments that really struck home for me was when the panelists said that they were looking to promote from within and that there was an inherent value in starting out in a company doing basic work like sweeping the floors or filling orders. There's certainly dignity and meaning in all work, and the best workers are often found within your smaller circles of family, friends, and coworkers, and not always on LinkedIn or Indeed or Monster, which are filled with loads of good information, but perhaps are not the greatest or most effective places for practicing happiness habits. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International, bringing you the Fastener News Report.